Hi, so it's still Pride Month, and I really wanted to talk about my gay-ass movie that I made called House of the Rising Sun during this Pride Month. So let's get into it. So coming off the heels of The Serpent King, I was in the market of writing another story that I hadn't ever written before, and it was something that I was really wanting to dabble in, which was a story based in a house. At the time, I was playing Resident Evil 7 Biohazard a lot, and that type of environment where you are in this house alone, trying to escape this crazy family was really inspirational to me. There was something about that story that I really wanted to write my own version, but something kind of supernatural. But I didn't want the story to be menacing in any way. I wanted it to be heartfelt in some sort of way, but I couldn't really land on something, so I just kind of started writing out ideas. Then I got onto the idea of writing a vampire love story, more so lesbian vampire love story. Carmilla was the main inspiration of that story, essentially. Primarily the web series, which was what got me into the story of Carmilla in general, and then I actually read the novel as well. Fun fact, did you guys know that Carmilla was first written before Bram Stoker's Dracula? That is a true fact. That is a true historical fact. Carmilla was written in 1872 and Bram Stoker's Dracula was written in 1897. That is 30 years before Bram Stoker's Dracula. And that's crazy. So I wanted to kind of write an inspirational story or something along the lines of Carmilla. So when I was writing, I had just come off of, well, just graduating grad school, and I had just finished a short film called The Serpent King. After I finished The Serpent King, that was pretty much it. That was that story, and I wasn't gonna write anything else in that universe. While I was writing House of the Rising Sun, I wanted to tie it in somehow with The Serpent King. And that's when I came up with the Hollow Brick universe. And then, now that's how we're here. I was trying to come up with different ways to connect The Serpent King. And the main way was to bring Mel and I back into this story and basically create doppelgangers. When I was doing test showings of Serpent King, there was a lot of people that was talking to me about how gay it was. And funny enough, when I was writing it, I wasn't at all picturing this Alice and Penny character to be very queer. It was the queer characters were the literal two gay besties that were in the film, But because I am a queer person, it just made it so easy when I was writing and also portraying Alice. When Mel and I were rehearsing a lot of those scenes, it just was natural for us to just be kind of this weird tension, flirty situation. Which was why I decided to write us as as mothers, as a couple. And that all pretty much stemmed from The Serpent King and the reaction that our characters got. So I presented this to Mel, and we developed our characters together. We basically came up with full backstories of these characters being gay in 1973, which was when the starting point of the story takes place. Stonewall happened in 1969, so 4 years as the events of the story were taking place. So when we were coming up with the backstories of these characters, I specifically dove down kind of a rabbit hole of where does Cordelia come from? Cordelia is from a broken family. Her father abuses her, and her mom is not really in the picture. So she takes solace in Lucy and in Lucy's homestead, essentially, Lucy's house, because and Lucy's mother is an alcoholic and her dad is a big rich businessman. You know, writing out those backstories, which, you know, we don't see in the film, but it was always just fun just to have that in the back of the head of these characters of like, oh, this is where they came from, you know? After that, we then tracked where they would have gone. You know, they couldn't really get married because it was the 90s, but they could still live together and be wives, but not, you know, in the eyes of the state, but in the eyes of them, they were wives. And then they adopted Eleanor and Rigby when they were probably infants, because, and this was also where Mel and I talked about like the aspects of them having children. This is how deep we got into our character lore. You could imagine that adopting children, especially as two gay women in the late 90s, early aughts, was pretty tumultuous, you know? And so we don't tell that story, but that was something that like we as actors and also directors, because she helped me direct this film, went into with this film. Kind of satisfying as not only a writer, but an actor to dive into this world of character writing, you know? So, because we had also thought like, character-wise, would our characters get pregnant? And I knew for a fact that Cordelia was not gonna carry, and Lucy would have, but they weren't also terrified if that their children would turn out to be vampires or some sort of like hybrid situation, because they are vampires themselves, you know? And so that was something that morality we chose not to do as characters, as we just adopted and didn't actually have these children. I will say, like, diving into Cordelia and Lucy was like probably one of my favorite things of ever doing when writing these characters. Not only that, but also just telling a very relatable queer story about two mothers in a society in 2023, which is when we filmed and shot the project, but also where the project takes place. But they still live in this fact of there's probably bigotry in their town. And you know, I made up this town, so I can decide if there's bigotry in this town. But this town has snake cults and werewolves and vampires and witches and mermaids. And so yeah, it's kind of a protective town. But I also wanted to have a protagonist like Jedediah Sadler, where he was kind of anchoring character of what is happening in society today, especially with queer people. And that was a story I wasn't sure if I wanted to write or not. It was more so of the fact that I didn't want to write something controversial, but I needed this story to exist. I want this story to exist because it is the daily truth of what queer people experience every day, especially in small communities, is the bigotry and also hate. And the fact that I made up this community where a lot of them are loving, but I just made this one person or group, I guess, be hateful and basically go after creatures or just people that are different from them, as kind of the woke ideology of it, I guess. And as a writer in Springfield, Missouri, it was kind of difficult for me to write that. And I think it was more so I was afraid to show this film to my small community, and also just I was afraid to show this film to my family. They have seemingly supported me through my endeavors of not only a queer filmmaker, but just being queer in general. And so this film was kind of a cathartic writing exercise for me. And so actually filming something where I am seemingly kind of intimate with another person on screen was a really big challenge for me. I actually did write in a kiss for Cordelia and Lucy, but I am not there yet as a queer actor of kissing another person on screen. I'm not there yet, but maybe someday I will be. We'll see. I don't know how y'all have full ass sex on camera. I can't do it. But when I wrote that, I went to Mel and I was like, we don't have to do this. It can just be more so of like kiss on the cheek or kiss on the head or something like that. But like, I was like, ugh. After thinking about it, I realized that this is a story where we don't necessarily need to see two women intensely intimate. This is a story about two women that died, but then were brought back to life as immortal creatures and now get to live together forever in the arms of one another. And so I wanted to showcase a story where we just see them in their daily lives, like interacting with each other, interacting with their children, and interacting with their environment. And that was the main purpose of this story. I didn't want to write a story where it was these two women go through this traumatic problem and then, you know, they never talk to one another again. You know, they get a divorce or something like that, or they die, or one of them dies in the other one's arms, you know? And that is the case of a lot of lesbian stories, is it's killing your gaze. And that was a big issue that I had when I was writing Serpent King, because when I originally wrote it, one of the gay characters does die. And I took all that out because I was like, I don't want to write a story where my one singular gay character that is specifically gay dies. That's what was troubling with writing House, because I was like, I need these women to go through this terrible, terrible thing, but they need to come out of it alive and well. And in the end, they're fine, but maybe their daughter isn't. Like, these women have been through it and, you know, they needed each other the most. You know, to Cordelia, Lucy is the sun, and to Lucy, like, Cordelia is the earth. And so it was more so writing a eternal love story of these two characters. The story that we told and the type of film House of the Rising Sun is, I hope inspires future queer filmmakers like myself. It was scary, I'm not gonna lie. It was very scary to make this film. It was more so, I think, internalized, because I was afraid to talk about this film and say, yeah, it's about two gay women and their adoptive children, but they're vampires. Saying those words to like random people on the street, horrifying. I don't know how to talk about this film in this conservative environment that I live in, you know? That is probably why I advocate so much for queer representation in media, especially in small communities. I shouldn't be terrified to talk about my film that I put so much effort and love and care into to just random people that come into my store and ask me about my filmmaking journey, you know? And a lot of the reception has been great. If people said anything, they never said it to me in front of my face, thank God. But we made a whole ass trilogy, you know? Where the gay vampires are still prominent in the film. And there's even more gay characters. It's just gay. And I love it, and I'm happy for it. I really don't have much else to say about this film, besides the fact that it truly is, at this moment in my life, it is my favorite thing that I've ever made. And I think it's because it's like the first thing, you know? It's everything, when everything's your first, it's always so special. Because I know when we release Spirit in the Sky, that will probably take its place. House of the Rising Sun, with how it looks, the story that we told, and the music that's in the film, I'm so proud of it. And I can't wait for you guys to see it if you haven't seen it. We're currently in a festival circuit right now. I submitted to 3 festivals because festivals are expensive. Happy Pride Month, be safe, and remember that we can't have this community without the trans individuals that fought for our lives to survive. Just always remember that. And always remember that you belong, and even though the world is so scary right now, you belong, and people care about you, and there's a community behind you, and we need to stick together, because It's scary times, my friends. It's scary times, but we need optimism and we need community, because that's how we thrive and survive, and that's how we have thrived and survived for all these years. So be kind to one another. I'll catch you guys around later.